Trump takes decisive action on border security, he is also sending an unmistakable message to rogue regimes abroad. The time for appeasement is definitely over, and our country isn't going to be ripped off any longer. Watch.
We're leaving and going to Rome, where we'll be attending the funeral of Pope Francis. Some of you are going to go. Anybody going? And it's going to be very interesting. We're going to meet with a lot of the foreign leaders. They want to meet. Trade deals are going very well. I think Russia and Ukraine, I think they're coming along, we hope. Very fragile. And Iran, I think, is going very well. We'll see what happens. We're working on plenty of things that shouldn't be worked on because none of this stuff should have happened. This should have been taken place by Biden. It should have been fixed by Biden, but he couldn't do it, nor could he come close to doing. So anyway, we're going to Rome to pay our respects, and we'll be leaving that same day. We'll be coming back home tomorrow night, and I'll see some of you over there. Otherwise, I'll see you on television.
President Trump is making it clear that business as usual is over. Violent criminal aliens will be deported. Adversaries will be held accountable, and no longer will the swamp status quo be allowed to stand. And as President Trump discussed with El Salvador President Bukele in the Oval Office recently, this is an agenda centered around common sense. Take a look.
There's something broken. It's the liberal establishment, but they're not running things anymore in this country, and we're run by, and I don't say conservative, I don't say anything, we're run by people with great common sense.
Yeah, common sense.
Because it's all common sense. Yeah. It's not liberal conservative, it's common sense.
Exactly.
And, do you allow men to play in women's sports? Do you allow men to box your women and box? Because I know you have a lot of boxing.
That's violence.
That's abuse of a woman. It's abuse of a woman. But we have people that fight to the death because they think men should be able to play in women's sports. And some of those sports, it wouldn't matter much, but it still matters. But some of them are very dangerous for women.
Some years ago, like you said, a decade ago or so, women rights movements were pressuring so that we enacted specific laws to avoid men abusing women. And I think those laws were great because there were a lot of men abusing women. But now some of the same people are trying to backtrack on that and actually trying to make new laws allowing men to abuse women in sports. So actually that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
It's crazy. You know, they have weightlifting records, right?
Yeah.
A woman gets up this way, she's incredible. A guy gets up and beats her by 100 pounds. What are you going to do? A record that hadn't been broken in 18 years. You know, they put on an ounce, quarter of an ounce, eighth of an ounce for 18 years. Now they have a guy come up, ping. The whole thing is crazy.
And joining me now, Abraham Enriquez, president of Bienvenido. Abraham, thank you so much for being back on the program. I've been looking forward to this interview because I just really want to get your perspective as we're approaching, this first 100 days of the Trump administration. What stands out most to you?
Yeah, well, I would say it's almost impossible to try to pause and catch up to everything that President Trump is doing because he just hit the ground. He hit the ground running. And I think that's all what we wanted. We wanted just a leader that was going to be in charge. But honestly, Kimberly, leading up to the 100 days, I've been reflecting on just how bad it truly was under the Biden administration. The fact that we are celebrating someone that is actually getting the job done and doing what he said he's going to do, that is now the new standard in politics. It's actually pretty disappointing, but that's the Democrats, right?
Right.
And really, Kimberly, as we're going into the, you look at Bernie Sanders and AOC going around the country, they're things, but real momentum has to have values. And the values have always been constant with our movement because it's a family, it's a faith, and it's a country. It's not about hate. It's not about attack. It's about preserving what makes America good.
We're actually getting a chance now as a country and as a party to celebrate the achievements, of President Trump. But what I think is interesting is the point that you make, we're so euphoric and excited about what's happening in this country right now. But it is important to look back, kind of like a flashback, to see, how bad, things really were and what was going on with this administration, to the point of that practically treasonous because of just the grotesque border violations, the lawlessness, criminals coming into this country. I mean, it is astonishing to me when I think about and reflect in just, almost 100 days, how many people have been deported that were hardcore murderers and rapists and criminal illegals in this country.
Absolutely, Kimberly. And that specific issue right there about border security and immigration was the reason why there were counties along the U.S.-Mexico borderline that had been under Democrat control for over 100 years, that for the first time ever flipped to a Republican-leading district under President Trump's vision. Why? Because of the lack of attention from the Democrat Party on the issues of border crisis, right? And look, it's easy to be a liberal elite living in your gated community in LA and Malibu and New York and Miami. But when you're the hardworking family in South Texas or Tucson, Arizona, and illegal crossings and substance and drugs coming across the border affect the daily lives of you and your kids, it hits different when Democrats say that there is no crisis at the border, right? So I think that President Trump, not only did he build a strong coalition of already Republican voters, but he took the blind off of so many voters, like Hispanic voters, women voters, Black voters, Asian voters, that have always aligned with our movement. They just needed someone to usher them in and give them the big Bienvenido. And that's why we have such great victory here today.
No, absolutely. I love when you say Bienvenido. And talking a little bit more, about the border, he's clearly prioritizing it, President Trump, just like he said, promises made, promises kept, the increase in deportations. And, I like it because it's like a renewed focus on, enforcement and also respect for the men and women that work in ICE and border control. And talk about how this focus on enforcement and border security, resonate within the Latino community here in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Hispanics were the largest minority voting bloc, or the second largest voting bloc in the country in states like Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Georgia. This goes on and on and on. I don't like calling it Hispanic outreach because, Kimberly, you go down to South Texas, you go down to South Florida, it's just outreach, right? They're all Hispanics. So this idea of border security, it just being a phase or being kind of just like a one election issue that politicians talk about is never going to be accurate, because so long as you live along the border or even just live in America, border security is essential for American sovereignty. And so the fact that the Democrat Party has yet to learn, Kimberly, and this is what makes me kind of excited about our movement, is that there really is no competition on the other side, because after President Trump won all 7 swing states, not only did he win the electoral vote, but he won the popular vote. That is a huge wake-up call to the Democrat Party. So I imagine that after election night, the Democrat Party was going to reshuffle, maybe repivot some of the things that they lost a lot of voters on, but they haven't. They've doubled down on this idea that we must protect, illegal immigrants with criminal records. The fact that the Democrats can't come to the table and put some border security or immigration reform, but are flying to another country to bring back deported criminals into our country should just show you the vision and the values that party stands for, which is why I think that we're going to have even much more bigger victories, in the future.
Yeah. And what do you think is the key to maintaining and growing Latino support? And, how does it tie in overall? Because I think you really have such an incredible, finger on the pulse of this movement and Bienvenido's mission.
Yeah, look, I think that it's really important to get out of traditional lobbying, consulting organizations in DC that have never really actually spoken to a voter, in middle America. President Trump taught us how to campaign and how to win the vote. And it's pretty easy when you knock on a door and you ask for the vote, and it's a good leader presenting the vision, they're going to vote. And so I think that it's up to us, Kimberly. It's our movement and our party. We must show up on non-election days as well, or non-election years as well, which is why it's really inspiring to see that the party and the White House and the MAGA groups are providing resources and support to even organizations like ourselves and saying, we see you, we see the great work that you're doing, and we just want to partner with you and want to do great work. And it's also just shouting out our victories, right? President Trump has done more than I think any sitting U.S. president in his first 100 days. And it's up to us. It's up to me and you, Kimberly, to go to our communities and say, this is exactly what President Trump is doing. Because unfortunately, the mainstream media is going to give him no credit for that.
No, that's a fact. And this was something very exciting because we recently saw President Trump meet with President Nayib Bukele in the Oval Office. El Salvador went from being one of the most crime-ridden countries in the world, and it was the homicide capital of the world, to one of the safest. What should we know about this story? And I'll just say this. I've spent time with President Bukele and was at his inauguration this last time when he won. And what an incredibly smart and talented man. And we're doing a lot of the things that he implemented over there, best practices.
Absolutely. And he also is giving us kind of a cheat code on how to,
Yes.
get your country back together. I think the Democrats should, just take a look at his master class in sovereignty. But the thing that I love about what President Trump is doing, specifically in Latin America, is this, Kimberly. We talk a lot about Chinese communist investment in America and how they're trickling in, and we must stop it, right? But what President Trump has also aligned to that, he's giving an answer to the question is how do we maintain a strong North America? And President Trump knows one thing, that America first does not mean America alone. So when you see him embracing Milei from Argentina or Bukele from El Salvador, or even negotiating and talking to Claudia from Mexico, he's understanding that if you help our southern neighbor, if you get them to help their own people, it decreases illegal immigration to the United States, but it also just makes North America great, and it counters Chinese influence in our state. And I think that that's the businessman as a president that we're seeing. He's a great ally to the nations that respect America. And I'm just excited that those are Latin American countries that for other administrations have kind of been, given the blind eye. But finally, we have a president that's restoring peace through strength in our southern, countries that are always going to be our neighbors and our allies.
More broadly, we've seen a deliberate pivot into the Western Hemisphere, under the president and Secretary Marco Rubio. What is the significance of that? And is there an opportunity here to, shake the foundations of communism in parts of Latin America?
I think Secretary Rubio has been such a phenomenal ambassador to what is the America First message. And I think that when President Trump picked Secretary Rubio, he really sent a loud message to the world and saying that America is now going to start leaning on our allies in Latin America. But first, we need to clean up some things, right? And I think Secretary Rubio has been doing such a great job. But let's expand the picture as well. The nomination of Kimberly Guilfoyle to Greece as well, one of our most trusted allies. I think President Trump is putting his most battle-tested people in the places that America needs them the most. So I'm excited, Kimberly, because the times that, I sat down in history class and read about these revolutionary wars and times where people rose up and defended their country, it's not necessarily the same as what we were reading in the history books, but it's the same as these are people who love America, who are standing up and saying, I'm sacrificing what I do for a living and I'm going in to support my country, in which I'm just so excited for people like you, Kimberly, that are causing this new wave of revolution for young people to say, okay, what can I do for my country? And it all starts with just getting involved in understanding the values and the laws and the policies and being ambassador for the movement.
It's very exciting. And yes, it is a great honor and privilege to be able to serve. And I'll tell you something, I've just been so impressed with everything as it relates to Greece and the incredible people. I've always held a special place, in my heart. I've really enjoyed my time, in the past in my life when I've been there and have so many friends in the Greek community. It's just, just like one big family. It's really fantastic. But it's an important place in post, as you say, because it's, EU, it's NATO, it's G20, and a very strategic and strong ally for the United States. We got to keep those bilateral relations going. Birthplace of democracy as well. So I loved studying ancient Greece and in college when I was at Davis. But let's talk about this. I want to talk about where the mission and the message for Latin America, goes from here, like over the next several months and beyond? Because you bring up a really good point, a salient point, which is there has been a tremendous amount of outreach and bilateral relations working with, Bukele so strategically in a cooperative partnership, because as you say, America first doesn't need to mean America alone. And just to see the strength of, President Trump and his administration, that all these countries are lining up to work with him, collaborate, really deepen and strengthen our relationships with our strategic allies. And there is a very keen focus, in my opinion, which I like to see, and I'm sure you do, with Latin America and our Latin American allies.
Yeah, absolutely, Kimberly. And I think that directly ties to border security. And you might ask why? Mm-hmm. Well, the people, unfortunately, that are good people that are leaving their country because they're fleeing crime, they just want a shot at the American dream and risk their lives crossing the border, dangerous trek to try to make it to America. It doesn't have to be that way at all, right? And I think President Trump pivoting and putting the spotlight back to Latin America and saying, I want to bring investment back into your country. But first, you got to, hyping up your security. You got to get rid of the criminals. You got to stop the drug trafficking. And Bukele is a great partner, a great example of what that partnership with America can look like. Now, taking it a step further, when President Trump passed the historic USMCA trade agreement, which was the Canada, United States, Mexico agreement, which got rid of the terrible NAFTA agreement, which, by the way, everyone said that it couldn't be done, and he did it. What that did is that it empowered our southern neighbor, Mexico, and our northern neighbor, Canada, and taking those jobs that China was taking away from us and bringing them back closer to home so that we can have more economic mobility and stability. And I think that the conversations that we're seeing with President Trump and foreign leaders negotiating on tariffs, that is the businessman in the Oval Office. That is what I voted for. That is what we voted for. And I think that is just going to spark, energy and enthusiasm to the business person that said, well, politics isn't for me. And I don't love that quote, because while maybe you don't like politics right. gets into your world, right? Whether it's your life, your family, or your business. So President Trump is teaching us how to go out and really, really fight for what we believe in. And we're seeing that as the master negotiator.
Fantastic. Time Magazine 100 list recently came out. Marco Rubio actually wrote the profile for Maria Corina in Venezuela. Is the Venezuelan opposition more credible and unified than we've seen in the past? What are you seeing happening in Venezuela? Yeah,
well, Kimberly, I know you have been gracious in covering this and really being a great resource of this. But I speak to my Venezuelan brothers and sisters, and I hear what they have to say. And they said, for the first time, we feel hope. We feel like we have a shot at this. And it comes because President Trump is empowering leaders to really help the opposition the opposition party there. So I'm excited to see kind of what we can do in the sense of letting a country figure out how to stabilize itself and how to grow itself. But it all starts, with a little bit of just one person doing a little bit more. And I think that's what we're seeing. And so I'm kind of curious to see what the next couple of months bring into that.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I'm curious. Where else do you think that we can explore? Obviously, President Milei has been fantastic in Argentina, that we can explore some good bilateral relations in Latin America.
Yeah, so obviously the very first one I can think of is Canada, because it's our southern neighbor. But you have these interesting countries like Costa Rica and including El Salvador, Honduras, that I think they're there. They're prime for an investment. The president of Ecuador, by the way, he's the youngest serving president in Latin American history, a great friend of President Trump, great supporter. He and his wife were at the inauguration. These are leaders, and you look at the story of the president of Ecuador, right? Young man from a family business background that was inspired by President Trump and said, maybe I can do the same thing, exactly. And won, and is now changing and making Ecuador better. So I think there's something to be said about how President Trump's victory did not only do something for American pride, but it also allowed people from their country to say, if he could do it, he's giving us a blueprint of how we can do it. How can I make our country great again and align ourselves as key allies to the United States? like Ecuador, who produces, I think, like 90% of our bananas, or 90% of their bananas come to America. So it's little things like that, Kimberly, that I think that if you're a businessman, this is the most pro-business president we've
Absolutely.
had.
Yeah, and a lot of accomplishments and movement as it relates to trade and the tariffs, and get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, so this has been such, I would say, the art of the deal in, live streaming every single day, not realizing kind of what's going to go on. But I loved it because at the end of the day, President Trump, he doesn't lose. And even when you think he loses, he doesn't. And
ends up winning.
We see that with 70 countries within 24 hours wanting to negotiate with President Trump. But here's the thing. And I think that looking back at it, Kimberly, you kind of said this a little earlier, but we have to give God credit in everything. And when the 2020 elections obviously looked a little different than what we expected them to and prayed for, I think it was actually truly a blessing. One, because it taught us as Americans for the 4 years that came after 2020, just how bad it could get if you continue to stay on the sidelines. But then putting that aside, President Trump now doesn't have to worry about, a re-election campaign. So what does that mean? That means he's able to fix things that might cause a little bit of pain today, but are going to fix a lot of problems for America in the long term that I think a lot of presidents in the past probably maybe wanted to do, but because of the attack of the media, probably hindered them to be able to do that. And so I think that we have a bold president that doesn't have to worry about mainstream media nonsense and just protecting American sovereignty and the American economy for not just a year or 2 years, but for a whole generation to come. And we're seeing that with how he's negotiating tariffs.
So, and again, we're at the first, 100 days essentially, but what do we see and what are you looking for? In terms of things that you and I have always talked about, in the past, things that President Trump promised that he wanted to get done, stuff that we needed to correct from the past administration. What do you think happens here? What would you like to see in the next 100 days?
So President Trump said, we're going to win so much, you're going to get tired of winning. And obviously when you hear that, you say, how could anyone be tired of winning? At this point, Kimberly, I can truly tell you, I don't know what else President Trump can do.
It's insane,
I mean, this
right?
man is just popping executive orders out left and right. He stopped he decreased illegal immigration crossings before he even stepped a foot back into the Oval Office. I mean, I think that as a person that just wants to, go to work and take care of their family, this is the president that's going to, you're able to rest at night peacefully because there's someone that is working tirelessly for you. So what do I want? I think that within the first 100 days, after getting across 100 days, I would love to see President Trump a little bit more relaxed, maybe in peace, going out in the community and enjoying the big win that he had. I don't, maybe I'm wrong, Kimberly, and you're a personal friend of the president. You're a great advisor, so maybe I'm wrong and you can tell me. But I think that since day one, it's been so much about we got to just fix everything, and it's great.
He was fighting for his life. They were trying to put him away for like 300 years.
Exactly. But I also feel like it was such a gigantic win that I don't think he's had the time to really just
absorb
sit back
it.
and say,
yeah,
we won, right? So I think after 100 days, you did all this amazing stuff. Let's get out in the community. Let's do a couple events. Let's enjoy it and let's embrace it because I think he deserves it. And
yes.
the first lady deserves it,
and
the
think
family
about it
deserves
too.
Yes.
Like assassination attempts, and the amount of it's just like a treadmill of constant stress and insanity that he had to put up with. But I know him. He's like me. We just we don't know how to relax very well. We like to work. We like to be doing stuff. But that's why I tell people, leave him alone if he wants to go golf, because it actually helps him with thinking. He does a lot of thinking when he's golfing, coming up with ideas and plans, and he still has all his articles coming in and being printed literally on the golf cart behind him. Now he'll print out all the articles and making sure he's staying up on everything. But he certainly deserves it. I think he's just so excited because he was so frustrated by what he saw that it's just there's this euphoria, in him when he's actually getting to do it and get it done and see it happen. I'm really excited, as a former prosecutor, about what's happening at the border, because border security is national security. And I love the focus, and you mentioned it earlier, we should be proud to be able to fight for our sovereignty as a country and as a nation and protect our borders and secure our communities and neighborhoods. I want to see some great things happen in education. I'm really proud of what he's done as it relates to, having women compete against women, girls against girls in sports, because that was inherently unfair and unjust what was transpiring before. And, and now, I'll tell you something else. Let me tell you. Don't hold it against me because she's Puerto Rican. That's a different kind of Puerto Rican, that AOC. I don't know what's going on with her, but you hear she's sort of like soft pedaling 2028. And I walked by the TV today and I go, oh my goodness, can you even imagine? Can you even imagine? These are people that are like, they embrace criminals and Tren de Agua and MS-13 and, they're crying for them. It's just, I don't know. Can you even imagine? Think about the contrast between what we have with President Trump and what we would have with somebody like AOC. That would actually potentially be worse than Joe Biden or Kamala.
It would be worse. It would be worse. But you know what, Kimberly? The American voter, we're sophisticated voters. We understand. We see what they're peddling. We're not buying it. And I think that if AOC and Bernie Sanders are giving us a glimpse as to what the next election is going to look like, I don't believe in sitting things out and being restful about it. But I think we're okay. I think we're okay. If that's the best they got, I think we're okay.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That'd be quite a ticket, let me tell you. So let's talk about Bienvenido a little bit more. What's next for Bienvenido besides you're having the Cinco de Mayo party
yeah,
in DC, bringing the community together.
I love it. Kimberly, this is my brainchild, really. And so I just go back. It's just a full circle moment, Kimberly, because I just go back where right before the election, really right before President Trump was going to announce his re-election, I remember sitting down with you and saying, I think I have a plan that obviously might not outright win this election for President Trump, but it can make a significant dent, and it comes with the Hispanic vote in these pivotal swing counties. And you immediately understood the vision. You said, let's go and let's get it done. Yeah, and we did. And we thought, let's get President Trump to 40%, and that's enough to win these counties in these states. We got up to 47%. And Kimberly, let me tell you something. That is the most any Republican presidential candidate has had with Hispanic voters in history, right? That means that President Trump is the most Hispanic supporting presidential candidate that we have had, which I think is amazing. And it all goes back because people like you believed in our mission. So we're not going to stop there. Bienvenido, we have 5 state chapters. At the end of this, by the end of this summer, Kimberly, we have launched a chapter in Ohio and in Virginia, making that important. 7 states. That's right? Important. Means we will officially be the largest pro-Trump affiliated conservative Hispanic organization in the country. And our job is simple. It's just to ensure that the Hispanic community knows the wins that we're having because there's a fighter in the White House for us, and ensuring that we're getting out and voting, right? That's it. Absolutely. That's all it is.
Oh, and we sure did this last election. Very, very good. So tell everyone where they can go to find out more about Bienvenido and also to follow you and see everything you're up to.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Kimberly. And for your followers, they can join us and be part of the Bienvenido family at bienvenido.us. That's both website and social media handles. And we're looking forward to giving them the big welcome.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, my friend. Looking forward to seeing you in DC.
Thank you.
All right. Be well. And my closing remarks just ahead. And in the meantime, free speech is under attack, but Rumble refuses to back down. We have always believed in empowering independent voices, and now Rumble is taking it to the next level. We are excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. And it's more than a subscription. It is a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. So join Rumble Premium. For a limited time, you can get $10 off an annual plan using promo code KG10. So just visit rumble.com/premium/KG10 and claim your discount today. Again, that's rumble.com/premium/KG10. Also, be sure to check out the good folks over at the 1775 Coffee Company. We talk about it all the time. Don't compromise on taste, quality, or your values. And 1775 coffee is brewed to perfection. It is crafted with precision and built on patriotism. The farm to cup process means there is quality, authenticity, and sustainability from start to finish. All the beans are ethically and exclusively single sourced. So why not? Try 1775 coffee today. Go to 1775coffee.com/KG for 15% off your first order. In closing, from standing firm against tyranny abroad to reasserting control at our borders, the message is clear. America is leading with strength again. And this very strength fueled by the resilience of patriotic American communities across the country that defines our nation. And it's all a testament to America's enduring resolve. Thank you so much for joining us today, and please be sure to download the Rumble app, subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, like and share, and tell all your friends so they know exactly where to find us. And please also be sure to follow me across all platforms: X, Truth Social, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Stay tuned to Rumble for all the very latest breaking news coverage, and don't miss Don Jr.'s big show at 6 p.m. Eastern. I hope you have a blessed and